So there's a character concept that I've kind of been a little obsessed with for the past while, and the idea really originates from a type of character in Magic the Gathering. So the two cards you see there are Chainer, Dimension Master, and Ashiok, the Dream Render. The idea being that this type of character can pull creatures or things like that from their mind, typically from a negative aspect of their mind, and cast them into reality as real, I guess I'll call them nightmare constructs, because Chainer and Ashiok, what they have in common is their ability to manifest nightmares into reality. They do it different, but the principle is more or less the same. Chainer in Magic lore is what's called a dementia caster or a dementia mage. I can't remember which one it is. And he has the ability to, from something called a dementia space, which is sort of like a metaphysical psychic plane that exists in his head. He can pull some of these darkest thoughts or nightmarish monsters from his mind and cast them into reality to fight with him and to fight for him. Ashiok does something really similar. He tends to manifest other people's fears into reality, but I like his aesthetic a little bit more than Chainer, where he's kind of got like this inky black smoke stuff coming off of his head there, and that will turn into like really spooky nightmare monsters that will fight stuff. And I liked the idea of having a character that could do this, not other people's nightmares. I liked the idea of him projecting his own fears to reality, almost having literally conquered his own fear and forcing it to fight on his behalf. This character would be backed up by kind of like, stuff like fear spells or different debuffs. And in some cases, they could do like Umbra Kinesis, like controlling darkness to make like weapons or as a projectile. And I thought I'd go over what system I would do this in, and then show off some of the miniatures that I've painted for this concept. So first, this is our Dementia Caster. This is our Nightmare Mage. This particular character's name is Auron, and I have his stats somewhere, but we're going to go over kind of how I built this character design. I decided that black, purple, and like dark blue made a lot of sense. They didn't use those colors, or purple at least, in the case of Chainer or Ashiok, but when I thought of doing the character, purple seemed like the thing to do. This figure was really good for this, is because he's casting magic over his head, but you can see that there's things like faces and hands manifesting from it. And I thought this looks a lot like how I imagined this dementia casting type thing would look, where it would look kind of smoky, and you'd have faces and monsters coming out of this fog generated from the wizard's head. If I was going to change anything about this, I might have used sort of dark blue instead of purple, or like a gray, because I don't know, I think it would make the darkness look a little bit more like darkness. But I do like how the purple turned out. But if I was going to change anything, that's what I would change. This miniature is actually a snow golem, but the way it looks, I thought really matched kind of this bizarre, otherworldly nightmare monster sort of look. So it's this eyeless monster with like this big grinning mouth. It just kind of looks like a pile of like flesh. All of the monsters that I made for this character concept, they all kind of have like this ethereal black, gray, and purple look. And then I threw some like yellow teeth and blood on there for effect. This isn't the first one I did. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites though, because I think it inhabits sort of that uncanny valley thing you might see in a nightmare sort of vibe, where again it's just sort of a pile of flesh with a big grinning mouth, and I thought it fit the aesthetic pretty well. Comparatively, I can show you a size comparison to our Dementia Caster. That's about as big he is to our human wizard, so just above human height. And he's sort of like a basic cast, so he inhabits sort of a typical humanoid form: 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, and a head. I figured the more unrecognizable a monster would be, the stranger its powers were, and by connection, possibly the less recognizable it is, the stronger it is. So that's our first monster. The second one looks a lot more ethereal. Again, it's about human size. I figured this one, and this is a topic I forgot to bring up, this one represents a fear of the unknown, or a fear of the dark. A Dementia Caster's monsters, I feel like, should reflect symbolically different parts of that character's psyche, or fears, or anxieties. This one represents, again, a fear of the dark. So as you can see, it's made mostly of this wispy, sort of inky, smoke-like substance, with just sort of like a single eye in the center. So there's not any obvious blood on it, so there's not like an obvious mode of attack that it has. If this monster has any special powers, it would probably be some kind of psychic or mental damage that it would deal on people. This thing's more like a lurker, so it would not be a monster that would attack the caster's enemies directly. It would be something that would hang back and probably mess with spellcasters to stop them from being able to properly do their magic. And yeah, it would be more like a disruptor type monster. This one actually came in a pack with another one, and I'll show you that one in a minute, but this one represents more of a nebulous fear. You don't know what's in the dark, so we kind of have this ethereal, almost formless mass of darkness just sprouting arms from its sides. This is the second one that came in the pack with the darkness monster. This one looked a lot like a creature from Magic the Gathering that actually has the Nightmare Horror type. It looks a lot like the Faceless Butcher, if you have that card. So I figured it fit here. Symbolically, this could be, you could interpret this as like a fear of the deep or a fear of sea monsters, because it has a distinctly crustacean look. Although you could read more things into it that I don't have the ability to describe right now. But I liked how it looked, where it's got sort of the carapace, it has the multiple legs in the front, and it has like these kind of wicked pincers. I also liked the vaguely humanoid face, because as you see there, it's got the 2 eyes, it has sort of the nose holes, and then it's all kind of drawn together by this big slug-like serpentine body. So this thing is a lot like the first one as a frontline combatant, where it would use its pincers to crush armor, to break weapons, and to generally just cause havoc on the front lines. It may be more of a hunter type, so maybe this slinks around and goes and finds rangers or people trying to fight from a distance, and will harass them and cover its master in that way. Next, we have this flying monstrosity. This is the miniature. Originally is a werebat, but I thought it would make a very interesting nightmare monster. Especially when doing research on this topic, I stumbled across this is almost completely unrelated, but it is related in a weird way, but I stumbled across an interesting version of Batman, where he becomes like this evil Green Lantern, and all of his constructs they're like evil, because they leak out these the fear and despair from inside him, and a lot of them take almost like bat-like forms. So that inspired this one. Obviously, this is like a hunter type, so it'll circle above and it's going to look for more valuable targets or targets that would cause a problem from a distance, and it will swoop in and rip them to pieces with its fangs. The unique power of this one is merely its ability to fly, and that it can harass a wide range of targets, and in that way provide sort of some unexpected cover for its summoner, a lot like the darkness monster from before. The minute I saw this Otyugh miniature, I knew it would make a really nice addition to this line of miniatures I was painting. The one modification here is that Otyughs have an eye stalk, and I snipped it off. So again, we have another eyeless thing that's comprised of darkness and negative psychic energy. This one is definitely a tank. This is a frontline, slow-moving, it's just a big mouth with legs, and it uses these tendrils on its side to rip people up. I think this is one of my favorite ones that I've done, and it's usually the one that I think of when I think of this character actually doing his summoning thing. So that's not all the miniatures I've done so far. I did a few that were like wolves, or I painted some shadow mastiffs along this same line, and those could easily represent something like a fear of dogs or a fear of the woods or something like that. This particular monster represents I'm not sure. I feel like this would just be a fear of being devoured, or a fear of just a general fear of the unknown, or fear of monsters, because this is just like this grotesque mouth with 3 legs, and it's I don't know, it's one of my favorites. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on, and I'm going to take a look at the system I decided to use to build this character in. The game I decided to use to build the Nightmare Mage is Bare Bones Fantasy. And the reason I've decided to use this game is because A, it's simple, B, a lot of the stuff in here is generic enough to where a spell can be, you can modify it with flavor and just kind of replace some of the stuff in there to match your theme. And C, creating monsters is about the same. So I'll give some examples of these, and I haven't totally finished the character yet. The concepts and the stats are still on my phone. I haven't been able to find. I haven't written a lot of it down. So this is going to be a logic-based character because we're going to be casting spells. So we're going to want the highest chance of success with spell casting as possible. Secondarily, I don't know what he would do secondarily. Either he's going to be sneaky. If he's somebody like Chainer, he's going to be a kind of more in-your-face combatant, because Chainer was a pit fighter. If he's more like Ashiok, then we're looking at somebody who is sneaky and summoning from the sidelines and using fear to keep people away from him. So that's how we would go there. When it comes to, let's see, spells. Okay, so no, the skill combinations we'd be looking at here is definitely where is that? It could be yeah, spellcaster. Here it is. So spellcaster is going to be the primary skill, and we're gonna again we'd pair that with something like warrior or thief, or possibly something like scholar. Scholar would just kind of reinforce the spellcaster thing, because we'd be able to research a lot better. I haven't played a scholar yet, but oh yeah, getting onto spells. So this one was hard for me because I had a hard time deciding if these monsters would be counted as illusions or they would be counted as summons. I decided to count them as summons. Where's that at? Here it is. I decided to count them as summons because in some cases, like for example, Ashiok, Ashiok is making multiple monsters. Chainer can make multiple monsters. And so I figured as this character became stronger, he could have more dice worth of creatures as he became more powerful as a mage. So, like, for example, at first he can do, like, what is that? 1 die divided by 2, so it'd be like a half a die monster. So not very strong, but by the time he's up to like level 4, he can have, that's practically an army. Because we're looking at, for creature rank 1, we're looking at like 4D, creature rank 2, 2D, 1D for creature rank 3, and 1D divided by 2 for creature rank 4. So that's a lot of monsters. We'll get to how to create those in a little bit here, but some supporting spells that I would use would be first and foremost Charm. However, we would the effect is it can cause a target to become friendly, flee, confused, or fall into a deep slumber. We would either be using it to make them run away in fear, or to fall asleep. Now, it would all be flavor if we can do anything to their dreams in their sleep. There's nothing, as far as I've seen in here, that does something like that. Offensive strike would be like Umbra Kinesis, like we talked about earlier, using darkness to lash out. We can also use Hinder, so we could flavor that as sort of like a fear spell, like they're frozen in fear, and they're not as dexterous, or they're not as strong, or we're distracting them from incantations by attacking their logic or their will or something like that. And Entangle could be similar as the Umbra Kinesis, because that could be things like shadows literally reaching out and grabbing people and stopping them from moving. Let's see, is there any other spells I figured that might work? Telekinesis might be kind of cool. Repel, if you're to repel a certain type of creatures. The only reason I didn't choose Repel over Charm is because you can't choose anything that's a player race. So if it's like, if you're fighting a group of humans, Repel is not going to repel them. So Repel works a lot like Turn Undead in a typical OSR game. Transform would be kind of fun, because like he could turn himself into some kind of big horrible monster or something like that. And that's all I could think of for spells. Now lastly, I wanted to talk about the creatures. So in bare bones, creatures are fairly easy to fabricate, as they have kind of these templates you can use. So for example, if I wanted to say this big guy here that was my favorite, I could say we've got like a he would be something like this is something like a horse-sized man-eater. So they had, like, his stats are already here. So he'd have like strength 50. It says that he's like a rank 2 monster. If we wanted, we could make these more powerful, but it has like ranks 1 through 3 for a bunch of stuff. But he has 65% dealing damage and like 4D of damage, and that's pretty good. So that's, especially for that early in the game. What did it say? That said it was rank 2. And if we go back to the summon spell, he can summon like a D and half of rank 2 creatures, and by level 3 of a spellcaster, he can just straight up summon one of these. So it's not that hard to reach rank 3 in this game. So pretty early, he's going to be summoning pretty powerful nightmare constructs. So that's a concept of a character I've had kind of stuck in my head for quite some time, and I felt good to be able to talk about him. Maybe sometime in the future, I can sit down and have a game with Auron and just kind of test out this character concept and see if I like it. I imagine it would play a lot like a Necromancer, which is kind of a summoner debuffer type guy. But I seem to be attracted to characters like that, so I'm also working on doing Nightmare Mage stuff for the Warlock RPG. So maybe I'll present some of that, and I've homebrewed some spells. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this gave you some ideas. Why don't you share some character concepts you've wanted to play for a while, and what you would do to create them, what system would you use, and what inspired them. All right, well, thanks for watching. Just wanted to get this off my chest and finally talk about it, and we'll see you in the next video.